Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in from across Canada, the United States, and beyond for another very exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. If you're joining us for the first time today, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world, and you can catch like 4,000 broadcasts on our YouTube channel right here on any STEM topic imaginable. It's such a wild ride. I hope you'll take the chance to do just that. Now, if you're joining us today as we get out of the long, stretchy weekend here in Canada, I'm so excited of all the programs that you chose this one because we are back on our Parks Adventure series. Now, every year over the last 5 years, we've had the chance to partner with the amazing sites in Parks Canada, which are not just some of the most amazing places in Canada, but some of the most amazing places in the entire world. And I'm particularly excited, don't tell the other parks, because we are right down the road from where I live. I'm in Corner Brook, Newfoundland. We are back live at Gros Morne National Park, which is one of the most special places in Canada, and everyone should come visit this summer. And today we are going to talk about celebrating and saving the giant leaper. Now, we have done a bunch of salmon programs over the years. Fish are friends here. We've got a lot of interest in this from all over the continent. So without further ado, I'm going to zip my lip and turn you over to the amazing Parks Canada team to dive in and explore some of their amazing work to save and celebrate our salmon friends. Bonnie Lou, welcome to the broadcast and take us away.
Thank you, Jesse. I'm coming with my salmon-themed cards. They got a lot of information on them, which I love. Hello, bonjour, everyone. It is super great to be here with all of you near and far. My name is Bonnie Lou Hutchins, like Jesse said. I'm acting public outreach education officer, is a long title there. And I work with Parks Canada right here in my home province of Newfoundland and Labrador. I don't know if you can see it on the map there. Newfoundland and Labrador. I think this would be Newfoundland and Labrador. That's where I work at. I actually work right here in Gros Morne National Park. Can you see it? In Newfoundland and Labrador. So this is Newfoundland and Labrador. I think Gros Morne is right there. Gros Morne National Park. Where are you all at today in this beautiful land that we call home? Does anyone know what Parks does? Remember I said I work for Parks Canada? Well, we look at special places in Canada like Gros Morne National Park, where I work, and protect them for everybody, for present and future generations. That is, protect them for you, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and so on. And there are so many of these special places in Canada. You can see on this map, there's a huge map of Canada. There's so many. There's 48 national parks here where we protect approximately 343,000 square kilometers of land. So 1,805 square kilometers of that is in Gros Morne National Park. And also there are 171 national historic sites, 1 national urban park, and 5 national marine conservation areas. Imagine that. That's a lot, I think, all across Canada. They're all named on that map there. So Canada is truly a maritime nation with a rich marine heritage. We have the longest coastline in the world, over 243,000 kilometers along 3 oceans. Imagine that. Plus another 9,500 kilometers along the Great Lakes. So if anyone lives along the Great Lakes, they know all about that. With our partners, our friends, we also share responsibility for over 5 million square kilometers of marine waters. So sea waters, right? The equivalent of about 60% of the country's land mass. We are the guardians of these places and our partners or friends, building on the rich traditions of Indigenous people, the strength of our diverse cultures, and our commitments to the international community. Speaking of our Indigenous peoples, they have visited those our shores and called this home since time immemorial. That's like forever they've been here. Really, I would like to take some time to acknowledge that all lands that are protected by parks are really Indigenous lands. So all these lands across Canada protected by parks are Indigenous lands. Indigenous peoples have been the real keepers and protectors of the lands in this area and across Canada and all of our sites since forever, right? Here in our province of Newfoundland and Labrador, there's a province of Newfoundland and Labrador. The lands and waters have about 9,000 years of Indigenous history, if not more. That's only known Indigenous history. It is a place where early maritime archaic peoples, sources, and Gros Morne peoples, the Thule peoples, the Beltuk peoples, the present-day Inuit peoples, and the Innu peoples, along with the Mi'kmaq peoples, have all called home and still do. Our first priority at parks is to maintain or restore the ecological integrity. Now, that's a big word there, of national parks. Now, this means just keeping ecosystems healthy and whole. And we do this by working with our Indigenous peoples and many of our partner friends. Do you like my theme cards? Anyways, I'm actually at this very minute in the lovely community of Trout River in Gros Morne National Park. Now, can you see Trout River? I think Trout River is a little bit small to see here, but I see Gros Morne National Park, isn't it? One of those 48 special protected places I just mentioned. There's a reason we're in this community today, besides it being just beautiful here and being pretty darn cool. Because once it was part really of an ancient ocean, thousands of years ago. And besides that, we're actually located by really old orange mantle rocks that make this park a World UNESCO Site. It has a gorgeous river too that runs through it into the sea. And we're located right now right beside the river. And in that river, there is a resource which has been very important to the peoples who have been here since like forever. And once there were a lot of that resource, but not so much anymore. Get this, everybody. We're working together to celebrate and save this little swimmer called Salmo salar, known as the leaper in Latin and palamo in the Mi'kmaq language, or Atlantic salmon. So let's take a look at Al first. My parks colleagues are helping to be the protectors of this little fish that could. But wait, maybe it's Salmo. Can introduce Mr. Todd Gillan, Park Resource Conservation Officer. Let's see what Salmo got to say.
Oh, thank you, Vanloo, and thank you, Todd. This is exciting. It's so nice to see how many people care about me in this little town. Maybe, Todd, you can tell these lovely kids all about how you're helping me and my family. All I have to do now is keep on swimming and swimming. Oh, I have to go. There's a big waterfall going down. Whee!
Thank you, Salma. I hope you didn't hurt yourself while going down that waterfall. My name is Todd. I work for Gros Morne National Park, and I work in resource conservation, which basically our job is to help protect the fauna and the flora that live in Gros Morne National Park. So basically just the animals and the plants that live here. So one of the animals that I've been protecting now since 25 years now, I've been working with the park, is the leaper, or what we call the Atlantic salmon. So before we get into what exactly we do to help protect the Atlantic salmon, I think we need to know a little bit about the Atlantic salmon. So I'm going to quickly go over the life cycle of Atlantic salmon, or leaper as they call them. So we're going to start off right at the beginning as an egg. Like birds, salmon lay eggs. And they lay eggs in riverbeds in an area called a nest. Okay? So they lay more than 5 eggs, obviously. A salmon, on average, will lay probably 4,000 to 5,000 eggs in one nest. And often they call them a red hair. So they lay these eggs and they bury them in gravel, in about 6 centimeters of gravel. And they lay these eggs in the fall of the year. Okay? So they lay these eggs, and in the spring of the year, the eggs begin to hatch. So when the eggs hatch, this is what the little fish looks like. It's called an elven. So we have the little fish here, and the egg sac or yolk is still attached to the fish, and they're still under the gravel, around 6 to 10 centimeters under the gravel. So what happens, this yolk sac here, that's what feeds this little elven for the first month of its life. So it's living under the gravel, and it's feeding off the yolk sac. So when the yolk sac is all dissolved, what happens is it comes to the surface of the water, or the surface of the water, and it becomes what we call a fry. It's a very small fish, maybe 6 to 10 centimeters long at the most, and this is part of the life stage. It begins to grow. It's feeding on insects, larvae in the streams, and it's growing. And in the first year, it'll actually make some changes, and it'll turn into what we call a par. So in the par stage, I think it's got par marks in the middle and red dots between it. And this color is more for camouflage in the rivers, so they're not being seen by predators. So this little par will live in the freshwater rivers for around 3 years. And then it makes a great transformation. It's an adult now, sort of an adult, and is ready to leave home. So what happens when they're ready to leave home? They pack their bags, they get ready to leave, and they actually change their we'll say their clothes or their outfit or their skin color to adapt to the ocean, because they're into the ocean now for part of their life. Salmon are called hydromatous, which means they live part of their life in freshwater, part in saltwater. So when they do the change, they become, this is their color then. They change like a silver color, which makes them very hard to see in the ocean. They become small. When they become small, they actually leave the rivers, head downstream over all kinds of falls, as we've seen salmon do, and basically they leave the ocean from Newfoundland, or leave the river, Gros Morne. They head up. Some of them go up to Greenland and feed. Some of them feed up the Labrador coast there. So they're feeding, and they'd stay in the ocean for around 3 years. Or sorry, mistake. They stay in the ocean for around 1 year. So they're up here feeding for 1 year. Then they got this instinct to come home. So you notice what's happening? They're growing. So what we end up with, by the time they're ready to come back home, is this. Okay, so now salmon is a full adult salmon ready to return to the river that it came from. For some reason, salmon always return, Atlantic salmon will always return to the river they came from. Somehow they smell the scent, or they're so adapted, they know their own river, they'll say. So back they come, they leave up there after feeding, they come back, they enter back into the river that they came from in Gros Morne, the Trout River. That's where a male and a female will get together, she will lay her eggs, and the cycle will begin again. Okay, so that just gives a good idea of basically the life cycle of a salmon. So now we want to talk about now what are we doing to help the salmon, because the population of Atlantic salmon in Trout River is pretty well, it's probably critical, right? We have a very low population. Some of the things we do to help the salmon is right now we got the river closed. There's no angling in the river. But how do we know that there's very little salmon in the river? How do we find this stuff out? So I'm going to talk a little bit about now some of the things we do. And one of the things we do is we install fish counting fences in rivers. I'm going to get Jesse to put up the screen a picture of the fish counting fence, so I'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Is it there? Okay, we'll just give Jesse 1 second now.
Oh yeah.
So basically, a fish counting fence is designed to count Atlantic salmon that are returning to the river. It's a big structure. It takes a lot of manpower to put them in, but when you'll get to see now in a minute is how they operate.
Is it up there, Jesse?
It's up there. Yeah, it looks great.
Oh, okay. Is it there on screen? Okay, so the way this works is you can see the fish fence there right now. Is the salmon will come in from the ocean, which is basically to the left in the picture. So the salmon come in, and you see how the fence is formed like a V, and it goes into V from the ocean is going into a wooden, like it looks like a wooden box with a wooden cover. So what happens? The fish are returning to the river to spawn. They hit the fence. They follow along the edge of the fence, and they end up in that box to the left. There's a box to the left. So when they're in that box, what we do is a person will go down. We will take the fish. We'll count them. We'll see how many large salmon there's there or smaller salmon. We classify them as large or small, depending how many years they spend at the sea. Sometimes we take a scale sample from them, which I'll talk about later, or a genetic sample, and then we just open up a gate and we release them release them back, so they just go on back up the river to spawn. The other box you see there on your right side is another fence that's coming down the river, and there's a box there. That box is there for a couple of reasons. One reason is sometimes we count smolt, which we talked about earlier, the smolt. When they leave fresh water and go to sea, we want a general idea, find out just how many is going out, because we can get a general, if there's a lot of smolt going out, then we can get a pretty good idea that probably going to be quite a few salmon come back the year after. That's one of the reasons. But there's also other species in the river that migrate back and forth to the fresh salt water as well, like American eel, brook trout. And there's also a way for them to get out of down below the fence, because the fence bars pretty well everything off. That's just a method for them to get down as well. There's a couple of reasons that we put that there. Okay, so then there's another, that's one of the methods we use to determine populations of Atlantic salmon. Another method we use is called electrofishing, which I'm going to get Jesse now to put up a picture of an electrofisher and basically how it works.
Absolutely. All right, let's pull that up for everyone. There
Yeah.
we are. Very cool.
Okay, so basically the way electrofishing works is we go into the rivers and we basically want to do juvenile salmon. We want to get a general idea, because if we got no juvenile fish, obviously we're not going to have no large fish. So what we'll do is we'll go into rivers in salmon habitat and we'll set up electrofishing plots. An electrofishing plot basically is we'll put up barrier nets on upstream and downstream, and we'll cover off an area probably around 150 square meters of area. So the barrier nets are designed, you see one there in the picture there, the white net. It's designed so fish can't get in or out. So once so basically what we're doing is trapping X number of fish in this small plot. So what happens when we got them, when we got the nets installed, we take the electrofisher, which is what you see on the person's back there. And what the electrofisher does is it puts electrical pulse into the water. Not enough to shock or kill the fish, but just enough to stun them a little bit. So what happens when they stun the fish a little bit is that they sort of come to float. So then we dip them with dip nets. As you can see in the picture, there's people there with dip nets, and they'll dip those fish and we'll put them in buckets. When we put them in buckets, then we'll probably weigh the fish, measure the fish, probably take scale samples off the fish as well, which I'll talk a little bit about later, why we're taking so many scales off the fish. And then basically what we do after that is we take the fish and put them in a recovery tank so they can recover from the shock. And we've been doing this for years. Very seldom do you lose a fish. It's very safe to the fish. And it's a great way to get juvenile populations. Most streams are healthy. You can have 20 to 30 juveniles in around a 100 square meter plot. In Trout River, we get around 4 to 5. So we know this river's in trouble, because if we don't have the juveniles, like I said, in the river, then if we don't have the little cars and the fries, then we're not going to have the smolt. And if we don't have the smolt, we're not going to have the salmon come back. Make sense? So that's just another method we use. One more method we use to determine salmon populations is through swim-throughs. These are probably the most fun part of the job. I'm going to get Jesse to put up the picture of a swim-through.
It's up and looks like a lot of fun to me. I want to join you next year.
Yes, and you're more than welcome. Anyone can come join us. Basically what it is we get up probably 8 or 10 people. We go to the mouth where the river enters the pond system, and we float all the way down the river using wet dry suits and snorkels. And basically what we do is we just float over the fish and we just count them. It gives us a minimum number of fish that's in a river. So we just float over and everybody will count the fish, and everybody has a great day doing it. It's really fun to watch the fish under the water swimming around. So that's another method we use to determine salmon populations. So we've got 3 methods we use. We do fish fences, we do electrofishing, we do some snorkeling to find new populations. This helps us manage the fish in Gros Morne National Park. We have 4 salmon rivers here. We have 3 very healthy rivers, and we have 1 that's not so healthy, but we're working to try to make this river a lot healthier. I talked a little bit about scales and how I've taken scales off a lot of fish, and I want to talk a little bit about that now, because the reason we take scales off fish is that's what we use to age fish. That's how we know that the salmon spend 3.5 years, around 3 years in freshwater, and then they go out to saltwater for maybe 1 or 2 years. We do it by the scales, and we age salmon the same as we age trees. It's done by rings. Only there's a lot more rings when it comes to a salmon growth. So I'm going to give you is this too far forward? It's good. Okay. So this is the picture I took of a salmon scale. And it starts right in the middle. This is where the salmon was born. And you can see some nice open rings here. That's in the summertime, but this is still in fresh water. So the salmon is feeding in the summertime. And then winter rolls around. not as much food around in the wintertime. So they grow a lot less. So the rings get really tight together. And bang, we're into spring and summer again. Grow really fast, and then it goes together again. We're back into fall and winter. And then, back to spring again. Here we grow into summertime. And then the rings are very tight again. And then what happens, you see after these tight rings here, after 1, 2, 3 years in fresh water, bang, look at these big open rings here. What do you think that is? That's right. This is when they go into the salt water. This is when the smolt goes down the river, and look at the growth, how fast they grow. Look how far those rings are apart. That's when they get to the salt water. They're eating all kinds of food, lots of food in the ocean for them to eat. So they grow really fast. Okay, so that's how we age, and that's how we determine that most fish here spend 3 years in fresh water, and they actually go to salt water for probably 1 year. We have some that go for 2, but mostly they go for 1 year. Okay, so that's just some of the things we do, and we do this with all species in Gros Morne. In some method we manage the species because we're here to protect these species, and that's part of our mandate. So that's just some of the work we do. So thank you, Salmo, for the introduction, and we'll talk soon.
Woo! I just jumped 3.5 meters high down that waterfall. I must take a break. Thank you, Todd. You're so great. I heard something about the community and school helping us as well. Miss Peavy, can you tell us about what you're doing to help my fish friends?
Good morning. Hello to all of our schools and students in Canada and in the States and beyond. I'm a teaching principal. My name is Kelly Peavy, and I'm very happy to be joining you here today. I just want to take a few minutes to tell you about some of the things that our students here at Jakeman have been doing over the last 3 years. I guess starting off, I would like to say that trying to bring back a species that's very critically low in numbers is a daunting task. It can't be just the responsibility of Parks Canada or DFO, which is the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. It has to be a joint effort by government, by nonprofit organizations, and by people in the community. And our students are a very big part of that conservation effort. We've partnered with a lot of local, national, and even international organizations to educate our children and, of course, the larger community. I'm still learning lots about the Atlantic salmon, and I'm sure you're going to know a lot more about salmon after this broadcast today, or podcast, or whatever we call it these days. 3 years ago, we started out getting some funding from different groups. Jane Goodall Foundation, you probably have heard of her. She is a world-renowned expert in promoting projects that have a focus on animals, people, and the environment. And we've been very fortunate to receive funding from this organization for the past 3 years. Our students have engaged in hands-on learning projects, such as recently, ever since February, we were fortunate enough to get 100+ salmon eggs from a river in Newfoundland, not our river, but a river called the Exploits River. And the Exploits River is a very, very healthy river system for salmon. We grew the salmon eggs here in school, where they remained as eggs for several months. Then they hatched, and out came these little baby salmon, where Todd already explained to you, they turned into what we call alvin. After several weeks of growth, they then lose that sac and turn into fry. The fry, even though for me, growing up, we would see lots of these little tiny fish in rivers, we would call them pinfish. They weren't even salmon, but they looked identical to what we had here. But the salmon, even though they were still only babies, they would exhibit very much adult-like behavior that we would see in salmon. For example, they would jump right out of the water near current in that aquarium. So where the chiller was pumping water and circulating water, those little fry would actually jump around that current. So the children learned a lot about the behavior of salmon through that project. And just recently we released those salmon on the Exploits River. That was a fantastic trip. We've also had our students do the aging of salmon through using a microscope. We went to Discovery Center. The children actually used the microscope and actual scales that Todd showed you earlier and helped age salmon. They really enjoyed that. We visited several salmon, I used to call them ladders, but now I think the term that we call them is fishways. So we here in Newfoundland, our government has spent a lot of money building fishways to enhance, I guess to make it a little bit easier for the salmon to get up these rivers. Because some of these rivers are very, if you've seen them, you'd be like amazed that salmon could even get through there because there's so many levels of waterfalls. And it's very, very challenging for salmon to get up some of those waterfalls. So fishways are built by our government to help that process, the fish to get from one part of the river up to the other. Our children have visited 2 of these fishways now. More recently, they visited the one, obviously it's Exploits River, but they also visited a $5 million new project, new fishway at Lowman River. That was last year. So our government is very much committed to seeing these salmon thrive in our province. Also, I'd like to talk to you about some of the things that we've also been doing with salmon to enhance things down, I guess, in the future. So tree planting has been something that our children have been doing in conjunction also with Parks Canada. We've planted, now this is our 2nd year in a row, native trees, right alongside of our river, so that in hopes that they'll grow to be tall, strong trees, to provide shade to the salmon. Of course, we got this thing called climate change that's changing things a little, and it's warming our waters. So we like for our salmon to have some shady places where they can rest. And of course, the trees, the root system would prevent erosion. So our children, right from kindergarten, right to grade 12, our community, moms and dads and nans and people who don't even have any children in school are very much a part of our tree planting projects. And we've already done 2 this school year, and we have another one coming up in June for our Salmon Festival. What else can I tell you about what we're doing here at Jakeman? We've been hosting, I guess, our 3rd annual Salmon Festival now this year. That's a partnership between different organizations as well. And it involves, of course, our students, and involves all of our community members and our partners who are very much involved in salmon conservation and stewardship. I think that's pretty much everything I'd like to say. I'm sure there's something that I'm forgetting about. But that's about it for now. So I'd just like to say thank you for joining us. And again, I hope that you learned a lot about salmon in this broadcast. And we really, really hope that you try to learn as much as you can and become a very, I guess, positive contributor to your own communities in protecting and enhancing wildlife and the environment and so on. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Geez, 3 speakers for the price of 1. Thank you so much to the whole Parks Canada team, our teacher team, everyone for joining us today to talk about salmon. We are going to dive in with some questions, and Bonnie Lou, if you want to come back on to field those, whoever wants to take the lead on questions, great, but we'll have someone back on screen in a second. We'll go from there. Thank you so much. The more the merrier. If everyone wants to come on, you're welcome to. So our first question, very easy one. How long do salmon live?
Salmon, I don't know the exact age, but I know we recorded salmon like 6, 7, 7 years old. So they don't often, they don't just come back now like some salmon and die after they spawn. Like they can go back to the river again. It's been known that salmon have come back 4 times to spawn. They've had that recorded. But the exact age, I'm thinking around anywhere between 7, 8 years old would be old for a
That's
salmon.
fun.
Spawning is laying eggs. Sorry. Yeah, spawning is laying eggs.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. And then you talked about some healthy rivers, but a particularly compromised river. Can you speak to what made that river so compromised? Like the one that's in real dire straits. What happened to get it there?
It's a combination of many things, I guess. I don't really want to blame it on one thing, but like you said, global warming has changed the salmon populations that are returning. The river runs through a community, which always has caused problems with things like poaching and illegal fishing. So that would be one of the major contributors here to this river.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Miss Riddle, coming in from Nova Scotia. With the electrofishing section, one of our questions from our classes is, can the electrofishing hurt the fish in any way when you're going through? Is it a danger to all of them? Can you speak a little bit to that?
There is, well, we have to do a training course to be able to electrofish in the rivers. We do have some PPE. I don't know if you noticed in the picture, but we all have to wear waders that are waterproof. We also wear what we call linesman gloves. Everybody's been trained up, and there's certain safety features on the electrofisher. Like if you tip forward or back, say you were falling into water, it automatically shuts down. And it also doesn't work in the rain. So with training and proper use, it is quite safe.
Fantastic. Geez, we're ripping through these. You guys are great question answers. For the swimming, is there a time that you do that? Do you do that all the time? Are there many swims? What's the deal?
Sometimes we do a couple in the river, but it's got to be done obviously when the salmon have returned. So usually the water's got to be reasonably warm for us to get into it. So usually it's around end of July, mid to end of July till the first week of August, sort of there. And that way we know the fish are already in the river by then. So it would give us a better number and a better count.
Yeah, outstanding, guys. All right. There's a big culture of fishing salmon. I know many people in Newfoundland myself that go fishing. If salmon are in trouble in some way, should we be fishing? How do we manage fishing in some of these rivers and what's going on?
Well, within Gros Morne, even with DFO, but in Gros Morne National Park, we monitor all 4 rivers. We monitor for salmon populations. If rivers we feel is low in salmon numbers, like Trout River, we close it down completely. Rivers like Lomond and Deer Arm, which is another couple of rivers we have in Gros Morne National Park. If we feel the numbers are low, we may reduce the quota for people because most people can take 2 fish, but we may knock it back to 1, or we may close it down altogether. So depending on what the biologists and their information they receive from some of the data they collect, they will determine if the rivers stay open or closed.
Yeah, great answer. Thanks, guys. All right, we've only got a couple more. Time flies and you're having fun in these broadcasts. Now, you talked about this a little bit at the end, but if we've got kids from all over North America, what can they do for salmon? Maybe that's salmon in Gros Morne and Newfoundland. Maybe that's salmon elsewhere, like wherever there are Atlantic salmon. What can our classrooms do? And maybe it's as easy as just telling people what they learned today, but share anything that jumps to mind.
Well, I'm going to let Miss Peavy talk about that because I think her school and the kids here are great stewards. And I think that's a thing that anyone can be as a steward of their province, of the resource. You go ahead.
One of the things that our children have been doing is cleaning up the waterways. They clean up the beach. I'm sure that's probably going on right now in a lot of your communities of viewers that are watching. That's very important, is to keep your environment as tidy and clean as possible. That starts there. If you wanted to host a fundraiser and donate some money to some of these foundations that focus on the environment, like the Jane Goodall Foundation, that could be another thing. But abiding by all the laws and rules and regulations are very important as well, because they're there to protect everything and everyone. Our hope is that we can return our salmon population to a healthy population so that we can resume fishing again, recreational fishing. This is a very popular sport in our province. It's a part of our culture. And this river has been closed for for many years right now already.
Yep.
I want these children to be able to get out of fly rod and to be able to go fishing here in their generation, their days. I'm hoping that I don't have to travel to the exploits this summer to go fishing, but I know I'm going to have to, because these things take time, and we need everybody everywhere to really be good stewards of the environment, because these species, we need to learn how to coexist with them.
And we have to
What a-
work together. Yeah, all
what
work
a-
together.
What a perfect answer, McBeevy, and a great place to leave us. Again, our classes are really familiar with this. Many of our classes have done Jane Goodall Institute programs. We've actually had Jane on the program before. So if you're keen, get out, get involved, get to your local nature area. Again, go camping in Gros Morne if you happen to have the chance this summer, if you're on the west coast of Newfoundland. All these things really do make a huge positive difference, and share with your classroom, family, friends what you learned today. It goes a really long way to helping protect species. But I want to offer a special thank you to our entire Gros Morne National Park team, the classrooms, and more. Thank you all so much for being here, and we'll say a big farewell for now to all you three and our entire group at home. Bye now for now, everyone. Thank you.